Hello gents, back again, and today I have a 2005 Ford Fiesta. It's a diesel, but this video will cover all Mark 6 and 6.5 Fiestas. Today I've got the vehicle in for a strut suspension top mount. The bearings you can see up there is all, you see up there? Yep, it's all collapsed, look. And it sounds horrific when turning the steering wheel. It was actual MOT fail. That's why I've got the vehicle here today. So I failed it and I've got the vehicle here to then obviously put a top mount on. But obviously naturally it's never that easy, because when I jack the vehicle up, part of the spring also fell out as well, which is bloody annoying because I've only ordered just the top mount to be replaced. So I'll have to go back up there and get a new spring. But what I thought I'd first do is just get the actual strut out, and I just want to use, because I'm using these spring compressors which I've never actually used before, because when I worked in a garage we had a proper hydraulic one with like the C cups, so using these ones, and I really hope they're alright. I know you've got to be very very careful with these ones because they can slip round and pop out and cause all sorts of dangerous things to happen. But anyway, so I thought I might as well do a video as well. So I'm just going to start off by getting this brake hose out. I think it's just held in the clip under there, so I just get a screwdriver there and just push it forward, and then the clip comes out. Get the anti-roll bar link off, and then undo the pinch bolt at the bottom here, and then I'm just going to whack this with a hammer, hopefully get the strut out of the hub, and then simply just 3 nuts at the top and it should come out. And hopefully I can use the spring compressors to get this old spring off. So wish me luck. I'll see you in a bit. So I've went ahead and undoing the little bottom clip that sits under here. Just holds the brake hose onto the strut there. It's just held on with this little clip, and I just find it easy just to get a flat blade screwdriver and just get underneath this little notch and then just tap it out that way. So hopefully that's free like that. As you can see, it just sits in there, that little clip, in that little groove. So next I'm just going to go forward and undo this anti-roll bar link, and then that's free, and then I'm going to undo the pinch bolt. So now the anti-roll bar link's free from the strut. That was a, what size nail was that? That was 15mm nut, and I held around the back there on the 2 flats with a 17mm spanner, and it came off nicely. So it's handy it's got these flats on there for something to hold on to, otherwise it can be a nightmare. But right, next thing to do is just undo this pinch bolt at the back. See there, it's threaded there, and this is what actually holds in the strut to the hub there. So hopefully that comes out nice and easy. And all it means once that's loose is just give this a whack with a hammer, and the actual hub will come away from the strut. See, I'm undoing the pinch bolt there. This is a 15mm. I'm using a 1/2 inch ratchet with extension. This was really tight, so if you do this, make sure you spray it up nicely with loads of WD, as you can see, which I've done. And there we go, pinch bolt is removed. As you can see in there, it's well corroded, so just be careful because these can snap, and if it snaps in the hub, you're in a whole world of hurt. So just, you know, don't hang on it straight away to try and undo it. Just see if you can just sort of move it back and forth and then work it free nicely. And loads of penetrating oil, guys. Now the pinch bolt is removed and there's nothing else holding this strut together or on, like the anti-roll bar link's off and the brake hose is off. All I do is get a hammer and just tap here. And you can see there, the hub is actually moving down and the strut is staying still, because obviously it's still connected up with the 3 nuts there. Don't undo these, do this last thing to get the strut out. So just keep tapping and the hub will come all the way down, and then you'll be able to pull the strut out of the hub. Right, as you can see there, the hub's moved all the way down and that's really loose. That literally just wants to pop out. You can see it's coming out. So when hammering this down, I use just obviously a copper hammer, not to damage this too much, and obviously be very careful of the ABS wire, because if you hit that you could pinch the wire and then you'd need a new sensor. So that's coming out now. It come out actually relatively easy. Sometimes these can get really corroded in the hub, and again it can be a lot harder than you think sometimes, but just make sure you spray it up real good with some WD-40 and it should work its way free. Now the actual strut It's free from the hub there. All it would now need is just to undo these 3 nuts at the top. I believe these are 13 mils, but I will double check. And once these are loose, I'll be able to pull the whole strut out, and then it just means compressing that spring to get the top mount off. Hopefully it's nice and easy. So just undoing these nuts at the top here. These are 13 mil. All I'm using is just a ratchet spanner to get the nuts off the studs there, and I've cracked this one off. And as I'm undoing that, I can feel the strut moving down. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come under here, hold the strut so I don't want it to fall and potentially damage this wire. Hold it steady whilst I undo this nut, and then that will allow me to get the strut out. Right, now the strut is removed. There she is. Be very careful when undoing these nuts, by the way. I did drop one and it went walkabout and I cannot find it, but thank God. When I used to do loads of these, I tied some spare nuts laying about for the top mount, I mean. So be careful you don't drop them like I did, because I couldn't find it. But anyway, here's the strut. And you can see it's a right old bad state. So the actual bearings completely come away. Spring shot past the top mount there, and it's actually caused quite a lot of rubbing on the actual car. But yeah, so I need to compress this spring. Really, I could cut it with an angle grinder because it needs a new spring anyway. But I'm just going to just try and compress it and see how these compressors work, because I'm going to have to compress the new spring I get anyway. So let's see what happens. Right, so here I have the spring compressed enough so there is no more pressure on this top mount here. As you can see, it's moving, so that will allow me to undo the top nut and get this top mount section off. Just be very, very, very careful when using these. It's just, it feels so sketchy doing this, and if you have the proper hydraulic ones with the C cups, they're a lot safer, but needs must, I only have these ones. And just do them up incrementally and never use power tools. I'll just use a 1/2 inch ratchet, so you can just do one side up very, very evenly, because there's a lot of stored energy now in this spring, and if something was to slip round or pop out, it could cause a lot of injury and damage, so just be bloody careful. I'm just going to undo this top nut here and there and get this top section off, and then release the tension on the spring. Oh, and always use safety goggles. I've got some on now. Right, so I've undone the centre nut that lives in there. It's a 19 mil, by the way, and I did have to just grip the shaft with some mole grips. This is not advised because you could potentially damage the shaft, but I got up really as high as I possibly could. Not marked it at all really, so I just gripped it, made sure it didn't spin, and as high as possible, because the actual seal down here in the strut, there's no way that's going to get up as high as there. So even if you did mark that a tiny little bit, you ain't going to cause an oil leak in the strut. If you was to grip down here, say, as soon as the strut goes up, and if it was running over a rough surface, yeah, you're going to damage the seal. But if you have to do it this way, grip it with some mole grips. The best way is just use an impact gun, and it whizzes that nut off real quick, because it doesn't, the torque just cracks the nut loose. But when doing it with a ratchet like I was, you have to hold it most of the time. There is a special tool to do this. It's like a socket, and you can put an Allen key and hold the centre of the actual the threaded section here with the Allen key, and then undo the nut. But I don't know if that's, so I just use the mole grip trick. Right, okie dokie, now everything is released. I've got the spring compressors off the spring, obviously just reversal of installation, so I just undone either one ever so slightly evenly, undone them nice and even, so they're off. Just be very, very careful when obviously uncompressing the spring, because it's just as dangerous as when compressing it. So as you can see here, this is the actual top mount. All the bearings completely fell apart, so there's the bump stop in there. So I'm just going to transfer this rubber stop with the bump stop over to the new top mount here, and then I need to go and get a new spring, as you can see there, it's broken at the top. So yeah, let's crack on. Right, we're back in action. Got my new coil spring, about 47 quid I think from Euro Car Parts. And yeah, I'm just going to put your spring compressors on there now, compressor up, and then get it on the strut and bolt the top mount on. So bloody hell, it just seems a pain. I mean, you have to keep going to the bloody parts place just to keep getting parts that you didn't think you needed, but it is what it is. Anyway, let's get these compressors on there and crack on. Alright guys, so the springs, I've compressed it, and I know these look like these are around the wrong way, but what I've done, I've had a bit of an issue. I actually ended up putting the spring the wrong way up, and I knew that because the top mount was all like on the piss like that, so I just took the spring off and then just flipped it. That's why these adjusters really should be pointing upwards. It's safe, so it shouldn't really matter like the way I've got it. So what I've done, I've just put the spring on the strut and I've just gunned up the centre nut there, so that's nice and tight. And then all I need to do is just evenly undo these two adjusters there to release, bring back the tension on the spring. And it, the bottom of the spring sits in this little groove there as well, so yeah, just screw that over a little bit. I'm going to do that now. So that's that all back in. Top nut's now tight. I just scooted that spring over a bit. I did like the thought of it actually just resting on there, on this, or touching that metal, just in case it was to cause any noises, I don't know, but I just moved it just back a tiny bit. But yeah, that's all done. Top mount moves freely. The spring's all sitting in the right place. I'll just whack it back in the car now. Right, before I put this strut back in the car, I'll just put a bit of anti-seize on the bottom of the strut there so it doesn't ever seize up in there. All I'm going to do is just lift it in. I can't film because I need 2 hands for this. Lift it in, and then when the studs pop out the top here, I'm just going to put the nuts on finger loose and then try and pop it in this bottom section here. So all I've done is just put it in same way I took it out. So I've just put them nuts on there finger loose just so it doesn't fall out from the top. Just popped it in the bottom, just lining up this back peg with the slit in the back of the hub. So what happens is this goes all the way up, sits flush. You can sort of see where it sat before. It'll go up as far as it can, and the bolt goes through here but also goes through that little cut out in the strut there. So I'm just gonna have to rock this, and it works its way up. Sometimes you have to put a bit of pressure underneath the disc or underneath the bottom arm just to give it some persuasion, but I'm just going to wiggle it and pull it around and see if I can get it up there. If not, I'll just get a jack and jack the bottom. It pushes it up. So in this case I did need to use my jack, so I've just put the jack under the bottom ball joint there, bit of pressure, and as I jack it and then give this a pull, you can see that's the strut's going further into the hub. So just give it a little bit of pressure and then pull it, because it binds up, and as you pull it, it drops further in. So it does make life a lot easier, so I do recommend doing it this way if you can. And there we go. We're there now. That's all it needs to do. I'm just going to check the back to make sure it's all the way home, and then put that bolt through that hole, and you can see there's nothing protruding out, so you know that the bolt should just go straight the way through, so you know that's all the way home now. Perfect. Right, I've just cleaned up the pinch bolt. I've just put a bit of Loctite at the end there because it did look like it had Loctite before. I've just put a bit of copper grease where you see it was rusty when I took it out. I've just cleaned it up with a wire brush and just put a bit of copper slip there, not on the threads, just on this section of the bolt. I'm going to put it in now, and then just put copper grease there just so in future if this needs to come out, it hopefully won't seize in there. Just thread that in. I like to get these started by hand to make sure it isn't cross-threaded. I'll do this up with a ratchet. I'll do it up nice and tight. I don't have any torque specs for this, guys. I usually just do everything tight. So if you are worried about torquing things up, just have a look on the internet, try to find out some specs, but I don't know. So I'm just tightening everything up. Plus I'm using the old bolt and all the old nuts and stuff like that. I've never had an issue doing that, but you do you. If you want to replace them, you can. Alright, pinch bolt's all done up nice and tight. I'm just going to put the anti-roll bar link back on. Just did put a little bit of blubber Loctite on there. And then last step would be putting the brake hose back on with the clip. So let's get this bolted in, or nutted up rather. always check things with a ratchet because that gun is not very powerful, so I do just put my spanner behind there and check that. Alright, so the anti-roll bar links all done up tight. Last step, we'll just put this clip in, and yeah, it sits like that going in. I'll just put a bit of anti-seize on there just to stop it from corroding in there if it needs to be taken apart again. And I'll just sort of get it started with my fingers. Tap it back like so. As long as it sits in that groove, the brake pipe is, you're all good. Alright, so that's it, gents. That is all back in at the bottom here. Pinch bolts tight, clips in. If you get the clip the wrong way, this brake hose is all wobbly still, so you've got to make sure that's obviously the correct way round. And I've done up the top 13mm bolts, just done them up tight, and that is it. So it's literally just time to bang the wheel back on. Alright, that's it, gents. I've put the wheel back on, it's all torqued up, started it up, the steering wheel moves nice and freely lock to lock, so I know it's all good there. And I'm just going to go for a test drive just to make sure it's all, there's no knocks and bangs or anything like that, but that's it. So hope you enjoyed the video, and that is how to do a coil spring and a top strut mount on a 2005 Ford Fiesta. Anyway, gents, I'll see you in the next one.